Hey, it's Brad here from surfed.com, and today I'm with a surfer, author and professor who's helping make really significant changes to the way people eat. Professor Grant Schofield, nice to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, a good place to start with is fat.
Yeah.
So obviously fat is something, it's quite topical, a lot of people talk about it.
Yeah.
Your book, What the Fat, explains a lot.
Yeah.
But for people who don't know, in the past we've looked at a spoonful of butter or a spoonful of fat as something terrible, and people have been taught that if you eat that, it goes straight onto your stomach or your thighs.
Yeah.
That's not really true.
No, it's sort of the problem is that fat in your diet, so a spoonful of butter or something you talked about, fat in your blood and fat accumulating in your arteries and clogging them up, and then just being fat, what they've got in common is that they're spelt the same. But biologically, it's a good hypothesis that would work out as well, right? That eating fat would turn into fat in your blood. Where else would it possibly come from? And that would clog up your arteries and make you fat. It just doesn't actually work out that way biologically. That whole process of fat in your blood and being fat and accumulating fat in your arteries is all driven by sugar and carbohydrates. Like, who knew? Because it's not the same thing, but that's what stimulates it. And so if you eat fat, it doesn't do that.
So from an evolutionary perspective, obviously fat has been essential to our diet.
The unique thing about humans is the size of our brain. And when you've got a big brain as a human, the brain requires so much energy, and it's constant. It uses it day and night. It would be really bad if when we ran out of food, we didn't have an alternate fuel supply. And so we're really good. Humans are very good at storing energy as fat. And then being able to access it again. So compared to a chimpanzee, which has a brain a quarter of our size, they're lean. A chimpanzee is 3 or 4% body fat. They don't easily get fat.
They are really lean.
Whereas humans have a much better adaptation for storing fat because we need to be able to use our brain. And predominantly the food that we were going after, the sort of African savanna idea, large furry animals. It was really the fat content of those animals that gave us sufficient energy to be humans. We were designed to eat that sort of food. We've sought out fat. And in fact, most traditional cultures, they would feed the lean meat. The Inuits in the Arctic, they feed the lean meat to their dogs. They wouldn't eat that. Rubbish. They'd eat the fatty stuff, save that for themselves.
In terms of calories, so many people are counting calories. What I love about the low-carb, healthy fat diet is that you don't need to worry about counting calories. Now, I've seen and read about studies where they fed people the same number of calories from carbs and fats, and the people on carbs were starving, and the people on fats were thriving.
Well, that's right. There's a sort of... So how can that speak? So you look at someone... You're walking through the supermarket, someone's loading up their trolley, and you look at them going, man, they're just too fat. Or they might be out at the beach on the board, and it's obvious as well. And there's a natural tendency to go, well, why are they too fat? Well, obviously they're eating more than they're exercising. The energy in and energy out don't match up. And that's true because that's how energy is stored. But in science, that's called a truism. It's true because you no clue as to how that happened. And so what we now know is that humans accumulate and use up energy and store it depending on hormones and a whole complex feedback, and that feedback works around insulin, and insulin's driven by carbohydrates. So when your insulin's high, then you can't burn fat as your primary fuel source, you burn sugar. Because we want to get rid of sugar. It's toxic in our body, we need to remove it as fast as possible. We try and store extra calories as fat. So the thing that stimulates fat use and not as insulin, the thing that stimulates insulin is sugar and carbohydrate. And so you did right. If you feed people exactly the same a meal of exactly the same calories, but you change the nutrient composition, then it totally changes how hungry people are. Not only that, it changes how much energy they put out. So when you're eating high fat, you actually use up an extra few hundred calories a day just because you're good to go. You're fidgeting, your whole metabolic rate has increased. Which is sort of counter to what we've been told.
Absolutely, So one of the other things that we really like about What the Fat is the idea of foods low in human interference. So what does that actually mean?
Well, I'd sort of made that up because I was sick of this, I'd see the Heart Foundation giving ticks to food, and there's a health star rating system, we give stars and, all this sort of stuff. And I sort of thought it fundamentally missed the point that the likely marker of a good food that was in a natural packet, it had just been taken out of its skin for either a vegetable or an animal, or had been just running around. So low HI, it's a bit of a play on the GI factor.
Yeah.
But if it was recently running around, it was alive in nature.
Yeah.
There's your guide. There's your healthy food guide.
If you can pick it off a tree or pull it out of the ground.
Yeah, or kill it. Yeah.
Now, in terms of inflammation, one of the things that I noticed personally when I started, going into ketosis and trying low carb is various little ailments, niggles, ankle injuries that wouldn't heal for years, eczema, just disappeared. What's the connection?
Yeah, that's just fascinating. I've had experienced the same thing. I had lymph nodes inflamed for a decade. Went low carb several years ago, disappeared in a week. And it's common. So, what we now understand is that the sort of common basis for joint problems, arthritis, skin problems, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and the biggie is that sort of aging brain, Alzheimer's and dementia. They're all linked by inflammation. Which is that, you cut your finger, it turns slightly red. It's the healing process. So what you're eating out is damaged blood vessels all around the body because of what you're eating. The sugar damages everything it touches, and the body wants to heal it, so it becomes inflamed, and it's that inflammation that causes the problem.
And so, in terms of surfing performance, obviously not being inflamed helps surfing performance.
Well, that's right, and guys, especially your middle-aged surfers going, well, my right shoulder's always been stuffed, and my knees hurt from this, and those things can resolve.
Yes.
And so your joints are working good. But not only that, I think that the big thing for me in surfing is having a constant energy even when you haven't got access to food. So the last thing you want to do, it's there's that magic window. You've already been out an hour, you're getting tired, but that magic window opens up. The last thing you want to be doing is sort of falling off the glucose skip, and you have to eat, otherwise you're going to hurt someone. You can't surf anymore. When you're on a low carb, I'm sure this is your experience as well, it just doesn't happen. So you've got that constant energy. The other thing that I see with the surfers that I work with is they'll get up early. There's a little offshore running. It's glassy because it's that time of the morning. You haven't got time to muck around. You just get out and get there. It's first light. You don't have to have breakfast, and you've got some constant energy. Or driving across to Raglan or something. It's taken a while to get there. It's going right. You want to get 3 surfs in. You're there for the day, so you
don't want to be messing around.
I think that constant energy.
Definitely.
And then, of course, when you're exercising, when you're burning more fat and carbs, that exercise isn't damaging the muscles nearly as much. So you don't get as sore. Your recovery for the next day is better. So when you're on a low carb diet, people talk about antioxidants, which you get from food, help neutralise damage to muscles and help the immune system function better. When you're low carb, you actually produce your own antioxidants. So you're getting it from healthy food as well as producing your own. So your whole immune system function is just lifted another whole level again. And that's the other thing. It's winter and you're getting colds and flus, and you're just less likely to get that. So triple bonus.
Triple bonus. So one thing some people have mentioned is straight after or before intense exercise. Surfing is kind of a combination of an endurance exercise and gymnastics. High intensity. Is it necessary to have a protein shake or have some gummy bears or something before and after? Do you need that?
I don't think you really do. The before part's probably not going to hurt you. You're going to burn that up, and if you're going to be if you're going to be paddling madly and you're going to do that 50 times, then just like other sports that have that sort of level of intensity, we generally do add a few more carbs. But for your average recreational guy,
you don't need to worry about.
Well, I'm on I'm on my 9.6 and I'm going to catch it anyway, so whatever, or not. The afterwards thing, I think, is a little bit of a fallacy. Interestingly, when you look at experiments, athletes that are eating a low carb diet, even if they're not eating carbs, they replenish the glucose in their muscles as fast as athletes who are eating carbs. And it's like, how's that even possible? And you get this change in gene transcription and glycogen resynthase and all that sort of stuff. So all of a sudden, somehow you're scavenging glucose from around the body, getting it from fatty acid oxidation, and you're putting it back in the muscles. And it's like,
that's incredible.
It's just an incredible machine.
It is. Okay, so once you become keto adapted, you are able to burn fat as a fuel. if you stray off the path, if you have a 5-day bender, or if you have Christmas holidays, can you go back into it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of interesting things wrapped up in there. The first of all is what you're saying is if you restrict the sugar and starch you eat severely for a week or two, then your body will make widespread adaptations. It actually doubles its ability to oxidise fats. So you get twice as good at fat burning. You're burning fat as your primary fuel source when you're doing things like sleeping, sitting around, surfing, sitting out the back. Fat is your primary fuel source. It's clean burning. That's great. And so that's called, as you say, being fat adapted or keto adapted. What you'll do, because I think everyone will do this because they're humans, I do it, is that you'll be in a situation where you're like, well, I'll just do that. And a couple of beers, or you're out and just have the dessert or whatever, or it's just
there.
It's just there. So you do. And the question is, how rapidly does that undo your ability to burn fat? If you keep doing that for a month in a row, you'll completely reverse it.
You
unravel the whole thing. But if you just do it, for a few days, then that adaptation is not lost. You can take it a little bit, but you get it back again. Really, really quickly.
Or even just if you stray for one meal, go and have something like a pasta.
It's
not going to completely destroy your
body. And in fact, some people would argue that there's advantages to that. When you're low carb, you run a phase called being catabolic. In other words, you're able to tidy up and repair your body. It's an anti-inflammatory state, which is great. But jacking up your blood sugar and insulin occasionally creates this pro-inflammatory state called being anabolic. And being anabolic is actually also essential for being a human. So cycling in and out with those odd meals, may actually be really beneficial.
It's like a little check just to help your body keep...
Of course, the problem for almost every modern human is that they are always anabolic and never catabolic. And so they never get that healing and cell die-off and cell repair process going. They're just pro-inflammatory the whole time, and that's terrible.
Because we think it's normal, which is crazy.
That's right, and that's, a lot of people find, of course, when they first go into a low-carb diet, they have quite severe adaptation symptoms. The body... this is a state that almost every human was in most of the time they were living on the planet until recently. Most modern humans have never experienced it. So there's some substantial reorchestration of the whole of cellular level stuff.
Everything
has to change. But once you've got that used to it, and you'll bounce back into it again.
Is for men and women a slightly different process? Because I know my partner, she found it a little more difficult to get into the zone. She felt sick for a couple of weeks, but now once she's in, she's
Remember, there's a few things going on here. First of all, being resistant to insulin, which is part of the problem here, is actually an advantage for women in parts of their life. Through puberty, helps store extra fat. Through pregnancy, helps shove nutrients to the fetus. Through menopause, because grandmothers actually were useful in older life and granddads weren't, so we need them to survive, and then through a monthly cycle we get changes in insulin sensitivity as well. So we hadn't got any of that going on. We're just existing as males. We're here.
And we go surfing.
And they haven't. So there's definitely female differences, but a little bit more concentration on getting in that zone, and you're in a sweet spot, and they'll benefit as well.
So let's talk about surfing. How did you get started surfing, and what's your surf story?
I'd sort of surfed a bit as a teenager, and I was always involved in some sort of surfing. In fact, I bought my first surfboard when I was about 17. I was never that good. And then I was into surf lifesaving and that sort of stuff as well. And more recently, I've ended up buying a place down on the Coromandel in New Zealand, a beach called Tairua, and I've got a 16-year-old, 14-year-old, and 7-year-old boys, and my wife and I all keen surfers. Of course, over the last few years, as we've re-engaged with that, the trouble is your kids start useless and you're awesome. And now they've improved a little bit, and these kids are just like ripping it all over the place, and they're embarrassed to be out there with me. And then more recently, I've got into this. I don't know what people think. These are slightly weird, but I've discovered these little hand plane things.
I've actually seen them.
It's sort of slide thing. It's like a big sort of plate that you can actually, on a big, fast barreling day, you can just you get deep in these things and you pop out. It's so cool, and you really feel like you're part of the ocean. And of course, getting out, you just flip under a wave. There's no, you don't get smashed at all, ever. So
That's pretty good, yeah. Surfers are really intrepid travelers. You know, it's probably one of the biggest things about surfing is you want to go places and travel. Often, especially when you go somewhere like Bali, you've got bintang and nasi goreng, which is, you know, the staple. Any tips for finding food so that you can maintain your low carb, healthy fat ratio?
Any place where they do sort of spicy curry type foods, they'll have meat, veg, and curry or Thai. So you just drop the rice and you're away.
That's it.
So that's simple. And also, you know, one of the good things about Asia is that they never really got the ridiculous American idea of having cereal for breakfast. Like that never occurred to them because it was just stupid, which it is. So they, you know, it's quite acceptable in most of those countries to eat exactly the same thing for breakfast as you eat for dinner.
So
that's cool.
So you have a piece of fish or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Just eat a fish. The second thing is, like, you're over for a week, you're not going to completely blow it, so you know, whatever.
Enjoy your holiday.
Yeah, enjoy your holiday. Carry on. I guess the third thing is, if you think the stuff's such utter rubbish, because I've set up some sort of beach hut on the beach and all they sell is completely ridiculous food. Of course, the advantage of being fat adapted is you don't have to eat to carry on. Because you've got access to all the fat stores and you
that's
can.
Exactly right. Well, that's actually something that I was very interested in as part of this is I've realized that, you know, food, we've got this idea that you have to eat 3 times a day, otherwise you're going to die. What I realized is I tested myself. I went 24 hours without eating and I was actually fine. I could have gone longer.
Well, we've done surprisingly, you think it's not even possible, we've done 3 and 5 day fast just to see what happens. Well, that's my job. We experiment with stuff. You've got to try it yourself, right? So, you know, sort of the view is, you'd get really low on energy and turn stupid. Well, just imagine how bad that would have been for an evolving human. Just imagine if when you didn't eat, you turned stupid and couldn't move around. So that's not what happens at all.
You don't turn into a zombie.
No, you don't turn into a zombie. Once you get over the little short initial hump, especially if you're already fat adapted, then the evidence is that your cognition gets slightly better, and you're ready to go. In fact, the only thing that deteriorates a bit is your sleep quality. And I think that's because you're actually, you know, it's almost like you're on a short switch, good to go. You know, like the hunt's on, get going. So that's been my experience. And you know, the only reason I usually break a fast is I think my sleep quality suffers, frankly. But it's it's a good little.
It's a good little hack.
It's a good experiment. It's like it sounds different out there. It's like, you know, if you ever not eaten for a whole day, what happens? And it turns out you're fine.
Absolutely.
And this is the whole breakfast myth as well. It's like, I eat breakfast, most important part of the day. You know, when you do studies on this, if you don't eat breakfast, all that happens is that you don't eat breakfast.
You don't eat breakfast, exactly. And so, next steps for anyone who's interested in connecting or finding out more about your books, how can they get in touch with you?
So we've written 2 books, What the Fat and What the Fat Sports Performance. So the first one's just more about how to do this type of way of eating. It's a recipe book, it's a how-to book, and it's got some science at the back. And the What the Fat Sport Performance is more of a technical, if you're getting right into this stuff, it's going to go through like, here's the real finer tips if you're an athlete. And so whatthefatbook.com. The thing is, after writing these books, how my life's fundamentally changed is that, you know, I'll just randomly be at some event doing something. I was doing something on last Friday with some school principals, and then, you know, there's nothing to do with this stuff, and at the end of it, one guy goes, my daughter lost 48 kilos on your thing, and then there's only 6 of them there. Another lady pops up and goes, my father was getting dialysis, and that was going to have to, you know, have it in his home, and since he did this, it's just resolved itself, and he's away. And then someone will randomly come up to the supermarket and go, I've lost 16 kilos, thank you. And you're like, you know, how's that even possible? Like, it's cool. It's just been an incredible journey.
Amazing ripple effect. Well, thanks so much, and thanks for all the great work that you've been doing.
Thank you.
And helping us personally, and I'm sure helping a lot of people out there in the surf world. And we look forward to catching up again soon.
Awesome.
Cheers.